We're not gonna bring that up.
Huh?
We're not gonna bring that up.
Okay.
Because they don't really, because these people are, they're not gonna know if they're accurate or not.
Yeah. Well, these are,
I read
they're
through
not very detailed. They're just
yeah,
summary
which
minutes.
I hope we get back to the other kind, the detailed ones.
Even though we have the video,
Yeah.
I have a difference of opinion, but
But it is true that when they're more detailed, I have more changes.
yeah.
Like on our, like, if you remember, well, you probably don't know, but like on the water committee, they were very, very detailed, the minutes for those. And I was constantly, they were just like, okay, Susan, what do you have to change? Because they knew.
Yeah. Were those recorded though?
No.
Okay. Yeah, see, I guess that's where I
Yeah,
am
actually.
having that distance.
Yeah, no, they weren't, because it was just a citizen committee.
Yeah.
Nobody was, there people were appointed, but it was just a citizen, it was a temporary citizen.
Yeah.
Well, it's supposed to.
That's kind of where I'm differing from you is, since these are recorded, you can actually just watch it.
Yeah, I get it.
Uh, but when they're not recorded, because there's still several, like there's one over right now that's starting at the same time. It's not going to be recorded, so they'll have to do detailed minutes.
What's their meeting?
It's the pedestrian and traffic
Oh, who's on
committee
that
meeting.
Sidewalk committee?
It's not, they're going to talk about sidewalks, but it's more than just sidewalks. And it's not about the policy on the sidewalks, it's where do we think sidewalks are needed, or trails, or other connections.
We need them all over town.
Yeah, I think what they're doing though is more of a ranking.
Priorities?
Yeah, priority.
That's good.
So,
Yeah, when I lived in Irvine, California, whenever there was gonna be a change or whatever, or improvements or roads, they had a priority list that they posted. You know how we do our active cases and inactive? They had like a live, update of, which roads, a live thing of, where the construction is and where it's gonna be planned
yeah.
and when. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think that would be actually kind of cool, but I don't know if we have the employee bandwidth for that.
Yeah. Public Works is going to be rolling something out soon. I don't know if it's exactly like that, but it might be in that direction
Okay.
with their projects that they're doing and will be doing soon. Probably not quite as good as that one, but
Yeah, and they're the ones that I showed Brian, the CFO, beforehand.
uh-huh.
By the way, do we have a CFO yet?
Yes, he just started last week.
Okay. Who is he? What's his name?
Kyle something.
Okay. I'll look on the website.
Okay.
It's probably in the e-news or whatever too. But I usually try to
Yeah,
meet with them.
He just started last week.
Okay.
I forgot to mention.
In our meeting. Jason's not here. Matt's not here. Should I move down? Did you put my name here?
Yeah. Would you like
And
me to
I'll be
move you?
all alone. Can I
Yeah.
go down there?
I'm gonna go to the ladies' room just in case.
Do we have a city attorney tonight?
Oh.
See where you're sitting.
No, no, this is fine. I don't mind one space, but don't want to be all spread out. Thank you.
Oh,
meetings ago, or a meeting ago, when everything was. So do I.
Mic check.
So you're named after him? Wow.
Yeah, it's like every other generation, there's a Robert McCowan. So my dad,
Mm-hmm.
his dad was Robert.
Mm-hmm.
So I think his dad was Robert McCowan, and then it skipped a generation.
Oh, wow.
And there was another Robert McCowan way back. But now it's, because I had all girls.
Oh,
So
man.
my nephew's the only boy, and he no kid.
No. And I know that. 36. That was young.
1883,
And is he in here in Colleyville or
Mississippi. Yeah.
Okay. It's pretty cool that you have all that history.
Yeah, my brother did a bunch of research.
He's in opposition. My sister's the one that does it.
And they don't, oh, one of them does.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, cool. We haven't done DNA stuff.
Yeah. I don't know how accurate that is.
Yeah, I don't either.
Mine, so did I. You know.
Okay, 7. Ready? You ready? You ready? Okay. Get my little microphone up here. We are calling to order the September 9th, 2019 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for the City of Colleyville. First item is we'll call roll. Commissioner Moore,
Here.
Commissioner Holt,
Here.
Commissioner Matheson, that's me, I'm here. Commissioner Cook is absent. Commissioner Bevel?
Here.
Commissioner Elms is absent. If I can ask everyone to please stand for the invocation and remain standing afterwards for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Heavenly Father, we gather today here this evening, blessed to live in the city of Colleyville and in the state of Texas, intent on doing good work. We seek to represent fairly and well those in our community who have given us this task. May our efforts be blessed with insight and guided by understanding and wisdom. We seek to serve with respect for all. May our personal faiths give us strength to act honestly and well in all manners before us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Let's see. Okay, the first item of business, we're going to do a little housekeeping and go through the minutes from past meetings very quickly. We've already received these minutes in our packets beforehand, so we're not going to read them all. Anyone's welcome to read them online. So I'm going to cover all these just in interest of time. Each of these meetings will just, I'll call a vote for all of them at the same time. First meeting, July 9th, 2018, Planning and Zoning Commission minutes for the for the regular meeting. Any modifications on that? No? Okay. I read through them and I'm fine with them. July 23rd, 2018, Planning and Zoning Commission work session minutes. Any questions or modifications? Okay. July 23rd, 2018, Planning and Zoning Commission minutes for the regular meeting. Any questions or modifications? Okay. August 27th, 2018, Planning and Zoning Commission work session minutes. Any questions or modifications? Okay, seeing that we have none, I'm going to request someone make a motion, please.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of July 9th, July 23rd, and August 27th of 2018.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, very good. All right, we will take the vote to approve the minutes from the July 9th, July 23rd work session and regular meeting minutes, as well as August 28th, 2018. Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Commissioner Holt?
Aye.
Commissioner Matheson votes aye. Commissioner Bevel?
Aye.
Thank you very much. This time, I'd like to invite any citizens that wish to come forward and make comments on items that are not on the agenda this evening as a public hearing item. Seeing no one wishing to come forward, we're going to move on to the next item. Let's see. And just before we do go on to this next item, I will say, for all of our open hearing items, if you do wish to come forward to speak on the matter, feel free to, there are speaker cards in the back. I have a few already, but if anyone wishes to come forward, if you can fill out a speaker card just so we have it for the record. Okay. So item number 3A, consideration of a special use permit for alcoholic beverage sales, on-premise consumption on lots 13 and 14, Block 2 of the Thompson Terraces subdivision. Case number ZC 19010.
Good evening, Commission.
The applicant is requesting approval for an SUP to allow for alcoholic beverage sales for on-premise consumption in conjunction with a new restaurant. The applicant is requesting to sell and serve alcohol as a part of the Stonehouse Restaurant and Wine Bar menu. And these would be the hours of operation: Monday and Tuesday, 4 p.m. to 9 p.m., Wednesday through Saturday, 4 p.m. to 10 p.m., and they will be closed on Sundays. They will only be open for dinner time. This is an aerial map showing the location of the property. The property is zoned CC1, and it's located on the east side of Colleyville Boulevard, north of Thompson Terrace. The property is a platted lot and is currently developed with a house that's from 1945, an accessory building which was previously used as a salon. The surrounding properties are zoned CC1 and are developed with some commercial buildings, and then the properties to the east are zoned R20 single-family residential and developed with single-family homes. A future land use does show this to be along the Colleyville Boulevard corridor and to be commercial in nature. And this just shows the existing buildings and the site as it currently is today. And this is an zoning exhibit showing those buildings as well. The applicant is proposing to operate the business in a similar manner to other restaurants along Colleyville Boulevard. The requested location is in compliance with the distance requirements of the Code of Ordinances, and the applicant is proposing to comply with the 40%, 60% incidental sales requirements. Approval of an SUP at this location for this user should not adversely impact surrounding uses or the character of the neighborhood. This is a site plan again showing the location of the building and that accessory building as well, and where the parking is located. And some more aerial information as well. They are proposing to have an outdoor patio, and this is going to, the picture shows how that will look. And the city did notify properties within 500 feet of this property. And we did receive a letter of, that's my phone, sorry about that.
It's okay.
We did receive a letter of support and as well as some letters of opposition as well. And in summary, staff does recommend approval of the SUP for alcoholic beverage sales for the Stonehouse Restaurant and Wine Bar.
Thank you. Does anyone have any, and just to clarify, for anyone that doesn't realize that we've had a change in our recent alcohol laws. It was in the past, it was requirement to have 60% of the sales be related to food and 40% to alcohol. Now our laws allow for 60% alcohol and 40% food. I just want to make that clear. Does anyone have any questions of staff? Okay. I would like to ask the applicant to come forward to maybe just give us a little, for those individuals here and also at home, give us a little idea of what your plans are. I know that we on the commission have chatted with you, well, not chatted with you, but we've heard this case very briefly in a work session. So we kind of have an idea, but for those at home, it would be great if you can give us an idea of what you're interested in doing. But before you start, if you can give your name and your address for the record, please.
My name is Paul Pardo. My address is 904 Saddlebrook Drive, Colleyville, Texas.
Okay, thank you.
What we propose to do is to remodel the existing building and make it into a restaurant. We hope to have about 70 or 80 seats on the inside, and then with the patio, we hope to put about 25 or 30 seats out there. We'll also on the patio have couches and tables, a couple of fire pits that we'll put out there for ambience with some arbulas and some lights. What we want to really do is just make some really good food and have a destination location for Colleyville.
Okay, great. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Pardo? excuse me, I'm sorry, we have a process that I have to follow just for our rules in terms of when individuals can speak, and there's a,
Well, I thought you said, does anyone have a question? That's why I responded.
oh, I'm very sorry, yes. You will have the opportunity when I open the public hearing.
There may be some miscommunication about live music and bands and stuff. We don't plan to have, or will not have, I'll say that, any bands or anything like that or anything. Our hours are going to be till 10 o'clock at night. That's the latest that we're open. When we talk about having music on the patio, we're talking about an acoustical guitar. No amplifiers, no loud music, no loudness or anything like that. We don't plan on throwing parties or anything like that to disturb the neighborhood. We did go around and talk to many of the people that are behind us and handed out pamphlets telling them what we were going to do and how we were going to do it. Some of them weren't at home and we weren't able to speak to them. I'd like to apologize if that's any one of y'all that we didn't come back to try make another attempt to talk to you. But we wanted to have a very symbiotic relationship with you and stuff. We're trying to do a restaurant that I hope will be a destination for Colleyville, and that you guys will come and enjoy it and everything. I'm happy to talk with anybody about anything and work with anybody that wants us to do anything we can.
Thank you.
Yes.
And I just want to make a comment very quickly that the purpose of our meeting, and staff had presented this, but the purpose of our meeting and our vote tonight is not on whether or not there's going to be a restaurant. Our vote is whether or not that restaurant will be allowed to have an alcohol license.
Yes, ma'am.
That's it. That's the purpose of our vote tonight, and I just want to make that clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
At this point, I'd like to open the public hearing. Public hearing is open. And I do have a number of speaker cards. I have a speaker card from Mr. Richard Novak. I don't know if you'd like to, for the record, speak to in support of or in opposition of. I think I have an inkling since I received a letter. But if you'd like to come forward and speak, that would be great. Yes, sir. And if I can remind you to please state your name and address for the public record.
Absolutely. Richard Novak, 5109 Oak Timbers Court. So I think the big issue, and I believe I'm speaking for several of my other neighbors that fall into that circle of 500, and actually we're kind of representative of the 200 feet radius. We're going to be the ones most directly impacted. Our biggest concern with the permission of the liquor license is, number one, the fact that it's going to be liquor, especially now, and thank you for sharing the fact that the rule has changed or the law has changed to 60% alcohol, 40% food. Mm-hmm. That's certainly a major concern, and in fact increases our anxiety overall on getting this liquor license, because we'll be backing up to essentially a bar. And I do appreciate the fact that there will be acoustic live music. Again, words are wind. We don't necessarily know what that's going to look like for special parties. Certainly appreciate the fact that there's going to be a new restaurant. We're actually really excited about that fact, and it looks like a great concept, but the liquor with an outdoor patio has grave concern for us for our quality of life. We moved to this part of Colleyville because large lots, 50-year-old oak trees, the things that really we cherish about this particular city, and we're afraid that our quality of life is going to be drastically reduced with the inclusion of this liquor license. Again, we understand we're not arguing the fact on a great new restaurant. Why can't it be BYOB? Why do we have to have a liquor license? And why does 60% of a projected business have to be on the back of people drinking in an outdoor setting in our backyard? Ultimately, that's our concern.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
What I'd like to do is, if I want to make certain that there's no other individuals that wish to come forward, and once I do have everyone that wishes to come speak, once we've heard them, then I would like to invite you to come back and answer. Okay. I have a speaker card from Pat Carew, who does not wish to speak, but wishes to record his opposition, or her opposition, I'm not sure, for this item?
It's Carew, to pronounce it correctly, Carew.
Thank you.
Also, I did have a question on your presentation.
Please come forward. And just so, as you're making your way forward, just so everyone knows that this body, the Planning and Zoning Commission, we will hear everyone and anyone that wishes to speak on any item that we're voting on. So,
Okay, my name's Pat Carew, and the question I have right now is that during your presentation, you said that it would not change the quality of the neighborhood. I find that hard to believe if there can be an outdoor patio with 50 people. Even if there's no music, 50 people in adjacent, right next to my fence, is gonna be loud. I mean, you can't keep it quiet, so. I mean, I read every day in the paper about rental houses or whatnot with 13 people there, and people are upset with the noise. So I guess my opposition would be the size of the outdoor patio and all the people that can be out there. So if you can address that, thank you.
What is your address? I just want to see where
I
you're
own
at.
5108 Oak Timber, it's in the
Okay.
backyard.
Got it.
I have a card from Denise La Posta. Am I saying that properly? That does not wish to come forward to speak on this item, but would like to have her opposition recorded for the record. I have no other speaker cards on this item. If anyone else would like to come forward, please do so now. Okay, seeing no one, I'm going to close the... Okay, please come forward. Yes, ma'am. Just so we have it recorded properly for the record.
I'm Denise La Posta, and our address is 5113 Oak Timbers. We're building, we bought that lot a couple years ago, assuming that all those businesses were day businesses. My question is, if you approve a restaurant and a bar in that location on Thompson's Terrace, does that set a precedent for future alcohol establishments all up and down Thompson's Terrace?
After I close the public hearing, I'll be glad to answer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to come forward to speak? Seeing no one wishing to come forward, I'm going to close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. Okay. I would like to invite you to come forward to answer.
Thank you, good questions. Sir, in response to your thing at the bar, it's not a bar. There's a big difference between a bar that serves food and a restaurant that serves alcohol. There's a big difference. We're probably gonna do more like a 70-30, at 70% food. We make most of our money off the food. That's why our intense effort and focus is on the food and making it good food. Food that when you put in your mouth, you say, oh, this is really good. Here, have a bite. That kind of food I think we're missing in Colleyville. I don't think we have it here. We owned Colleyville in South Lake, a little pizza place there. And we, I think, served very good food there. People seem to like it. And that's what our focus is on. It's on the food, not the alcohol. But people like to have a cocktail when they have food. Most of them will have a cocktail first, and then they'll switch to wine after when they would have their meal and stuff like that. So that's kind of what we're wanting to do there. We're not wanting a bar. I don't want to run a bar. I don't go to them. I don't like them. So, but got nothing against them. But we're a restaurant, and there's a big difference between those two. As far as the size of the patio, yeah, there is a certain amount of
Mr. Pardo, Mr. Pardo, I'm sorry, excuse me. Do you mind answering in the microphone?
Oh,
just
yes,
so we
ma'am.
have it? I know it's a little awkward because I know that you wish to.
I want to look at them when I talk to them. There is a certain amount of chatter that's going to go on. We close at 10 o'clock at night. Most people are going to eat they'll be finished up by 9:15. It'll be dwindling out. Most of the people will be on the inside. The patio's going to sit. We're hoping for 20, 25 people. There will be some couches and chairs out there for people to mingle if they want to come in, have a glass of wine, an appetizer or something. But it is going to be kind of low. We're not going to tolerate rowdiness or anything like that. That's not the kind of place we operate, and that's not what we're going to do. And I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous, but what was the other question that you had or concern?
Well, my question was mainly to the zoning committee. They said that the proposal would not change the neighborhood. And with seating of, let's just say 25 people in your backyard, how can the noise not change?
How about if we were to enclose that area? Now, enclose part of the patio and then have part of the patio open, but enclose part of it where people could dine in it. And as far as you're saying that, when I mentioned that we're not going to have loud music and a band and stuff, if I tell you something, you can go to the bank. If I tell you that's not what we're going to do, you can believe me. That's not what we're going to do. So I'll give you my word right now, that's not going to happen. So acoustical guitar, I think that's nice and romantic. Everybody likes that, I think, but won't be loud music, and maybe we can work to where we can cover part of that patio and enclose some of that noise that would be a problem for you. I'll work with you any way I can, do anything I can do. Are there any?
Make it sound positive, but you know, once you let the camel nose under the tent, then I'm stuck with whatever.
I understand. I'll give you my phone number. You can call me. You can. I don't know what else I can tell you except I'm a man of my word, and I do what I say I'll do.
I'm ignorant on this, but I've been to some of the places on Colleyville Boulevard, and you have to, and I don't do it, but I see other people bring their own bottle in, and then when they want their wine with their dinner, they serve it like that. I was under the idea that maybe that's how things were around here. I should know better. I mean, I've lived here 30 years. But I thought maybe starting that way and working your way towards a liquor license in our mind might be a better idea, but I'm just throwing that out.
We're investing quite a bit of money into this project, and we ought to be able to get our money back. And we do make a profit on alcohol.
I think we need to make sure that we're following our public hearing.
Yeah, I mean,
Processes.
it's a little, this is
Okay, I'm
really
sorry.
very
I'm
unorthodox,
sorry.
and it's against our
I'll
rules.
be happy to
to have
talk
an
to you
exchange.
outside.
I'd prefer mine on the record, actually.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Like, you're talking.
Oh, I'll stop. I'll be quiet.
Well, then, sir, I'm sorry.
Okay.
The rules are that when we have an answer to a public hearing, the answer is to really the commission. I allowed the back and forth exchange just because I felt like they did need to have their questions answered. But I can't go into, I don't feel comfortable having a long diatribe back and forth. It's just, it doesn't
Yes, ma'am.
adhere to Robert's rules, and I'm a rules person.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
I'll
you.
sit down. Thank you.
Okay. But the public hearing is closed, so how can we, should I reopen it?
You have that ability.
Yeah, I'm going to reopen the public hearing just because we do have an additional question, and I'd like to make certain that that's answered. So the public hearing is open. So yes, sir, if there's anyone that wishes to come forward, and I see that you're wishing to come forward, I didn't want to shut down the exchange, but it got to the point where I needed to.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Again, I hope I'm understanding this correctly, that the thing that we're arguing here is not that a restaurant is coming in and that there's gonna be an outdoor patio. It's
Correct.
the nature of the liquor license. And I just wanna make sure, for the record, it's not necessarily a new question. I would just like, I guess, a reiteration of what I said earlier. The fact that this restaurant is coming in, I, for one, am very excited, and I hope it's wonderful, and I hope it's very successful. The issue at hand is the fact that there is a liquor license, and regardless of what rhetoric is said, there is a potential. And I work in my business in a world of contracts and putting things down and signing them with fancy pens. So if anything is not set in stone, it doesn't exist to me. And ultimately, the city of Colleyville has deemed it appropriate that a restaurant that receives this license, 60% of its profit can come from the sale of alcohol. That is my problem as a homeowner who is essentially going to be sitting in my backyard at 9:45 at night on a Friday night. I spent a lot of money to not have to hear alcohol-induced revelry. Simple as that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, does anyone else wish to come forward? This is going to be the final public hearing of this item. If not, I'm going to close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. Okay. At this point, I would like to open up discussion for the commissioners to discuss this item. The applicant had made a suggestion to close off part of the patio, and I think that might be something that might be helpful in terms of noise reduction. The other thing I want to emphasize, and I know our law enforcement enforce this, but we do have noise ordinances in the city that must be adhered to, and they are enforced. So there's already laws on the books that handle that. I understand living behind a restaurant of, any kind, maybe not ideal. I understand that. But again, this is not about whether or not there's going to be a restaurant. It's about the SUP for the business located there. The other thing, let's see. Ms. LaPosta, you had a question regarding setting a precedent for other businesses. I will say that SUPs, they're special use permits, and the SUPs are all heard on a case-by-case basis. And because of that, I don't think that this necessarily sets any kind of precedent for that. That's my take on that. But again, every case is going to be heard separately. Okay, anyone else have any questions or comments?
I do.
And I do welcome, yes.
I have a couple of questions for Mr. Pardo, if I may. I'd like to know, you mentioned that you own coal mines in South Lake.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm familiar with that. Do you know what your alcohol to food ratio is there?
Our alcohol to food ratio there was very low. So low that we quit the alcohol and just went to wine and beer.
Okay.
Our ratio there was we would sell probably $500 in 6 months of alcohol. So it was not worth the license, the additional cost of the license, and it wasn't worth the additional tax that we had to pay for that. So to move our business, not move our business, but to move our business model, we reapplied for a beer and wine permit only.
Okay, and then that kind of leads to another question I have, which would be, is it feasible that you would sell beer and wine only under your license here at this location rather than having a full-blown alcoholic beverage license?
Yes, ma'am, we could. We could. I feel like people in Colleyville, I've seen several of them, like to have a cocktail before dinner and then a glass of wine at dinner. I was just trying to make it happy, to make everybody happy.
Well,
Seems to be a chore to do.
a lot of times I know people gather prior to going out and have their cocktails before they leave. And so if it would make it more appealing to the neighbors because you are in such close proximity to the residential area and the families. And we're not just talking about, a man and his wife. We're talking about people with children too. And so I wanted to suggest that you might consider that, or I wanted to kind of
I'd
see-
consider it, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then, on the, I think that's all my questions for you right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
For Ms. La Pasta, the question, I think, is even though each case is heard individually and all the different facets are considered individually, the precedent question is a good one. And because this restaurant would be in such close proximity to residential area, that certainly could be a valid concern. So thank you for that. I think that's all I have right now.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments or want to discuss anything?
I would just ask for a clarification from staff on an SUP of this nature.
was
Is
thinking
it tied to the hours of operations? So if we approve the TABC permit, is it tied to those hours of operations y'all put up there?
It is if we put it in the ordinance.
Right. That's exactly right. So we have the statement of planning objectives. It is in that, but if you want to make sure it is specifically tied to the hours of operation, you'd put that in the ordinance. Let me check to see if
I don't
we've already
think
done
that-
that.
I don't think that we have.
Actually, we did add it in to
Okay.
the ordinance. So it shows Monday and Tuesday, 4 p.m. to 9 p.m., and then Wednesdays through Saturdays, 4 p.m. to 10 p.m., and then closed on Sunday.
Okay.
So we have included that into the ordinance.
Okay.
And then do we have a percentage, Ben, the percentage of opposition based on the documents that were presented to us from the surrounding neighbors?
Yeah, so we did a very quick and probably not entirely precise, but based on the calculation that we've done within that 200-foot boundary, not the entire 500-foot, it does trigger the supermajority. It's right at 20.4%. And we just did that very quickly today. It might be off a slight bit from that, but it looks like it does.
It would require a supermajority on the council's vote.
Yes.
Do we have that same?
No, there's
No.
no supermajority
we don't
triggered
have
with
that here.
Keens.
Okay.
The way it works for our body is if we don't have a majority, if we have a lopsided vote, then it would require a supermajority of council to approve something, but here we already have that, so it's really not valid. So, okay. Okay, anyone else have any questions? Regarding the different tiers of alcohol license, with the hours in place, my feeling is that it doesn't really, I don't think that we really need to request a lower tiered license. That's my opinion, but.
But there is a license specifically just for beer and wine.
Yes.
Right. TVC has a few different levels.
Sure.
So
Okay.
for this decision, it's just whether alcoholic beverages
Yeah.
can be sold.
Do you know, Ben, if there's a particular license that is issued with the ordinance that if they wish to come forward again in the future and ask for a different type of license, like for alcohol, is that something that has been done or not?
So I think if,
Historically.
as part of the motion, and ultimately if council agreed and they approved for beer and wine only, then you would have to come back to make it be for liquor as well, because what was approved was for beer and wine only.
Mhm.
But if we're just doing sale of alcoholic beverages for on-premise consumption, it could be
Right.
anything that has alcohol in it, and so they would not have to come back for anything.
So if this body approves or, votes on just the blanket, as it is in the ordinance, as stipulated, just kind of, alcohol, no direct reference to the type of alcohol, is it at council's discretion to modify that?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
I have one more question. I'm not familiar with any residential area that has adjacent alcohol service. So I may not be familiar with what all we have here, but who can answer that?
Well, I do know that we, as a body, we approved the building and related application for the wedding event, the event center that's on Colleyville Boulevard, and that was approved.
Right.
And there's housing behind that.
Yes, there is. So our next item will have residential adjacency, but then the Ruggieri's previous location here in the village, single-family residential use right next door.
Right next door. You're right. Okay.
Yeah. So there are other examples in town.
Okay.
I'm just, I think, I really am excited about this restaurant, and I think that the Pardos are smart to, to use that property that way for a restaurant, because I think it can have a lot of charm. I do have another question for Mr. Pardo. Can he come back up? The photo you gave us of the outdoor dining area
Yes, ma'am.
it's really beautiful. But do you plan on having that much lighting?
Can we put that up?
Yes, can you put that? Do you plan to light your patio with this much lighting?
All lighting will be on dimmers. So as the mood sets and there are many aspects to running a restaurant. You've got to have good food, you've got to have a fair price, you've got to have great service, you've got to have a great atmosphere.
Yes,
And
atmosphere is
lighting
important,
and
yes.
music is all part of that atmosphere. So all the lights are on dimmers. So as the evening gets darker, we set the lights to a certain wattage. They're not on full blast like this all the time, no ma'am.
That's a good question, Claudia.
And the BYOB, how does that work? Is that something that you all have considered at all?
No ma'am,
No?
no ma'am. That's where a lot of times what you do is you charge somebody for bringing in a bottle. It's called a corkage fee.
Yes, I understand.
I don't want to do that to people, and we do need to make a profit. We have to get a return on our investment. And the mixed beverage permit, wine, alcohol, beer, allows us to do that. There's a margin in there that allows us to make a return on the investments that we're making in the community.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Has our commission read through this ordinance? And if not, should I read it out loud before we vote?
Read it.
Yeah, okay. Do y'all mind if I do this?
I'm sorry.
Do you,
What was it?
do you mind if I read this?
No, that's fine.
I know that you'll have to repeat it, maybe. Let's see. Okay. This is, the ordinance as suggested reads as follows. Amending the zoning ordinance and the official zoning map by changing the zoning lots 3 and 14, Block 2 of the Thompson Terraces Addition located at 5201 Colleyville Boulevard by authorizing a special use permit for the sale of alcoholic beverages for on-premise consumption. providing a penalty of fine not to exceed the sum of $2,000 and providing an effective date. Whereas the City of Colleyville has received an application for an on-premise consumption of alcohol under case number ZC 19010. And whereas the City of Colleyville deems it necessary for the purpose of promoting the health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the city to enact a new zoning ordinance. And whereas the City Council has appointed a Planning and Zoning Commission to recommend the boundaries of the various original zoning districts and appropriate regulations be enforced therein, and to recommend a new zoning ordinance. And whereas the Planning and Zoning Commission has divided the city into districts and has prepared regulations pertaining to such districts in accordance with the comprehensive plan and designed to lessen congestions in the street, to secure safety from fire, panic, and other dangers, to promote health, welfare, general welfare, and to provide adequate light and air to prevent the overcrowding of land, to avoid undue concentration of population, to facilitate the adequate provision of transportation, water, sewage, schools, parks, and other public requirements. And whereas the Planning and Zoning Commission has given reasonable consideration to, among other things, the character of the districts and their peculiar suitability for particular uses, with the view to conserve the value of the buildings and encourage the most appropriate use of the land throughout the city. These are just very general stipulations in most ordinances. Whereas the Planning and Zoning Commission of the City of Colleyville and the City of Colleyville City Council, in compliance with the charter of the City of Colleyville and state law with reference to changes in zoning classifications under the zoning ordinance, regulations, and zoning map, having given the requisite notices by publication and otherwise, and after holding due hearings and affording a full and fair hearing to all the property owners generally and to the persons interested and situated in the affected area and in the vicinity thereof. The governing body of the City of Colleyville is of the opinion that said change in zoning should be made. Now for there be ordained by the City Council of the City of Colleyville that all the foregoing premises and findings are found to be true and correct and are incorporated in the body of this ordinance as if copied in their entirety. That the comprehensive zoning ordinance of the City of Colleyville, Texas be, and the same is hereby amended by changing the zoning on lots 13 and 14, Block 2 of the Thompson Terraces Addition, located at 5201 Colleyville Boulevard, by authorizing a special use permit for the sale of alcoholic beverages for on-site consumption as depicted in Exhibit A, Exhibit B, and Exhibit C. That the above described tract of land shall be used only in the manner and for the purposes provided by the comprehensive zoning ordinance of the City of Colleyville as herefore amended and as amended herein. That the above described tract of land shall be subject to the following conditions. 1, the special use permit shall apply to the sale of alcoholic beverages for on-premise consumption in conjunction with a restaurant use only. The name of the business authorized for on-premise consumption of alcohol sales by this special use permit shall be called Stone House Restaurant and Wine Bar. The special use permit shall automatically expire upon the abandonment of the business, change in the use, a change in ownership, or upon the expiration or termination of the certificate of occupancy. All requirements of the Land Development Code shall be met, except where amended herein. 2, the hours of operation. The hours of operation shall not exceed the following schedule: Monday and Tuesday, 4 to 9 p.m., Wednesday through Saturday, 4 p.m. to 10 p.m., closed on Sundays. That any person or corporation violating any of the provisions or terms of this ordinance shall be subject to the same penalty as provided for in the comprehensive zoning ordinance of the City of Colleyville, and upon conviction shall be punishable by a fine not to exceed the sum of $2,000 for each offense. That it has been found that there has been a change in conditions, if it has been found that there's been a change in conditions in the above described property, it is now necessary that given the above zoning classification, in order to permit its proper development, and in order to protect the public interest, comfort, and public welfare, and requires that this ordinance shall take effect immediately from after its passage, and so on. So I read the entire ordinance, and the hours of operation are in there, which I appreciate, and I'm glad that we have that. It can be adhered to, and if it's not adhered to, there's going to be penalties. So, and again, I will emphasize, we are just voting on the allocation of the special use permit. Does anyone else have any questions? No? Okay. All right. Well, I feel like I have enough information in front of me to ask for a vote, please.
I'd like to make a motion to, well, let me get to it. Sorry. Approve zoning case CC 19-010 with the stipulation that beer and wine only be served, since Mr. Pardo expressed the willingness to consider that.
Do I have a second on that?
I'll second that.
My concern in making this motion, of course, has to do with the opposition of the neighbors, and I think that's fair to consider. So I want to be clear on that too.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm just, as a comment, closing at 12 or 1 o'clock is one thing, but closing at 10 is, it's quite a bit different. Okay.
So what are we gonna do here, because we just totally changed that up?
The whole thing's been modified. I mean, this changes
So-
it.
Yeah, we changed the whole thing up.
Well, with the
The
motion that
stipulation.
was made, the change would then, I will be adding that as a condition to the ordinance, saying that it'll be authorizing beer and wine sales only, if this motion is approved.
So a vote, yes, sends it up to city council.
Right.
With that stipulation.
Correct.
A vote no sends it
A vote no
back
would
to
be.
reapply.
No, not necessarily. They do have, the applicant does have the option to go ahead and appeal onto city council even with a no vote. We already have the supermajority triggered.
Yeah.
If we did not have that with the opposition, a supermajority would be triggered based on a recommendation for denial. If this motion does not pass, the commission does have the ability to make a secondary follow-up motion.
Okay, I'll request a vote on this motion, as stated by Commissioner Bevel. Commissioner Moore?
Nay.
Commissioner Holt?
Aye.
Commissioner Mattison votes nay. Commissioner Bevel?
Aye.
Okay, we have a tied vote. So it didn't pass. So I'd like to ask for a different motion, please.
I motion that we approve case ZC 19-010 as is.
Do I have a second? No second. Am I allowed to second?
I think so.
I think so too. I think I'll second it. Okay. Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Commissioner Holt?
Nay.
Commissioner Mattison votes aye. Commissioner Bevel?
Nay.
All right, so what do we do now?
So this will be considered a denial. The motion did not pass. The requirement is for 4 affirmative votes. The applicant can appeal onto council, and this will be another trigger for the supermajority vote requirement at the city council.
Well, how about we do something a little unconventional and request another motion?
That is, yep, we are still on this item, so we can do another motion.
And actually, I think I'm going to make the motion. It's not my first choice, but I'd like to make the motion that we vote for case ZC 19010 with the stipulation that it's beer and wine only. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Commissioner Moore.
Nay.
Commissioner Holt.
Aye.
Commissioner Matheson votes aye. Commissioner Bevel.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries.
It does not carry, because we do not have the 4 votes.
Oh, we don't have the 4 votes, that's right. But it's final.
So, same thing,
Yeah.
they would appeal onto city council.
Okay. Come forward, please. I don't like this.
I don't understand. What I don't understand is why I'm willing to put $750,000 into a business in this neighborhood, and you want to tie my hands over the difference between a gin and tonic and a glass of red wine.
So,
Fair's fair.
It wasn't my first
I've-
choice,
I've-
but I was
I've
trying to
tried
get
to-
something. I was trying to
I've been over
compromise.
backwards to do everything that I thought was right. I run a good business. I want to put money into the community. I want to support the community.
So, Mr. Pardo, the Planning and Zoning Commission is a recommending body. They have
I know,
not made
sir.
a final decision.
I understand the process.
So,
And what I don't understand is why. This should have passed very easily, very simply. My opinion only.
yeah, and
It's
so I think
also
it is
about
now
the-
onto
it's
the
also
city
about the
council. And
neighbors.
so I would
Yes,
just
sir.
appeal onto the city council.
Right.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, when we make a vote, we have to consider the evidence at hand that we have, the application, and also the voices of neighbors and individuals that may be impacted or think they may be impacted. So,
100% be considered, the 4 people out of the how many thousands and tens of thousands in Colleyville. You're right, everybody deserves to have a voice.
thank you.
That's right.
It's, yeah, the public hearing's closed, so. Okay. All right, moving on to item number 3B. Consideration of a SUP for alcoholic beverage sales on premises consumption for Lot 1, Block 1 of the Town Square Edition, located at 5604 Colleyville Boulevard, Suites A and B. Case number ZC 19-011.
Okay, this is a request for an approval for an SUP to allow for alcoholic beverage sales on premises in conjunction with a new restaurant at this location. The applicant is requesting to sell and serve alcohol as a part of the Ruggeri's Pescatori Italiano restaurant menu. And the applicant is proposing the following hours of operation as a component of this request. Sunday through Thursday, 5 p.m. to 9 p.m., and Friday through Saturday, 5 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. Again, they're just going to be open for dinner time. And this is the location that they're looking at going into. It's along Colleyville Boulevard, on the west side of Colleyville Boulevard there. The properties to the south and east are zoned CC2 Shopping Center District and developed with commercial buildings. Property to the north is zoned CN Neighborhood Commercial, and it's improved with office buildings. The property to the west is zoned R20 Single Family Residential and is improved with homes. The future land use map, very similar to the case before us, also has this in the Colleyville Boulevard corridor and is indicated to be commercial in use. And this just shows the location of the restaurant, and they're looking to operate and utilize 2 suites in the existing building. The requested location is in compliance with the distance requirements of the code and ordinances, and the applicant is proposing to comply with the 40/60 incidental sales requirements. Approval of an SUP at this location for this user should not adversely impact surrounding uses or the character of the neighborhood. No letters have been received from the city at this time, and staff is recommending approval of the SUP for alcoholic beverage sales.
All right, thank you. Is the applicant here? Would you like to come forward to speak, please? And if I can ask you to please state your name and address for the public record.
My name is Julie Gonzalez. My address is 7651 Cypress Court, North Richland Hills.
Okay, thank you.
Some of you know me, but our restaurant here in the village burned down, and we're just looking to relocate. We were there for 15 years. We averaged about 72% in food and 28% in alcohol.
Okay.
The new location will not have a patio. In the past, we just didn't have that much business out there, and also with the weather that we have, it just wasn't feasible for us. I mean, we only used it for about 3 months out of the year. Also, we have a very small staff, and we want to focus on the inside and not the outside.
If you can remind, do we have pictures of estimated build-out, or, what you're planning on doing in terms of within the space itself?
We're going to have a bar that seats 8 people only. We'll have seating for about a little over 100 people.
Okay. And is your request for beer and wine only, or just a blanket?
Beer, liquor, and wine.
Okay. All right. Anyone have any questions for the applicant?
So your seating would be for approximately 100?
111 exactly.
Okay. Okay, so would those be, that's okay. I think that's all. Just wanted to make sure.
Do we have any, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Do we have any letters of support or opposition?
No letters either way.
No letters either way. Okay, very good. Okay. I'm going to open the public hearing for this item. Public hearing is open. If anyone wishes to come forward to speak on this matter, please do so. I have no cards on this item. Yes, sir? Thank you. Appreciate you.
I'm Michael Hirschman, address 5430 LBJ Freeway, Suite 1200, Dallas, Texas, 75240. I'm a president of the general partner of Eagle Colleyville Town Square LP. We're the owners of the shopping center. I don't know if this is the time of the meeting that I speak, but
yes.
We've owned the shopping center since approximately 1995, and we're excited that Ruggieri's has selected this location to relocate. We've been looking for a appropriate anchor tenant for the center for some time, and feel like they operate a first-class business, and it'll be a tremendous amenity not only to the immediate neighborhood, but to the city of Colleyville. And given their history, and as Julie said, their percentage of food sales, this is primarily a restaurant known for its food. And appreciate your consideration of their request.
Do you have any, if I may ask you a question, do you have any planned improvements to the building? Are you providing allocations, if you don't mind me asking, for leasehold improvements within the lease?
Yes.
Okay. And do you have any ideas of what those improvements might be, is my first question. My second question is, do you anticipate any major modifications to the building itself that would impact the other tenants?
We don't currently anticipate any exterior changes. The tenant is in the process of completing their architectural plans, and once we get those, we'll address them and go from there. But the space was previously a fitness center, so it's going to be completely gutted and remodeled according to their plans and specifications.
Okay. I'm sorry, how long have you owned this building?
Since 1995, approximately. It might be 96. I can't remember exactly.
And when's the last time you made improvements to the building, to the exterior of the building?
Well, we just repainted the exterior, within the last 6 months. We remodeled we completely remodeled the facade approximately 9 years ago.
Okay. Just curious. Okay. Anyone else have any questions? No? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, does anyone else wish to come forward to speak on this item? Seeing no one coming forward, I'm going to close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. Okay, I'd like to open up discussion for this item amongst the commissioners. And I will provide that I know there's grave concern about the proximity to residents in the prior case. So I think that that's something to think about. And I'd like to hear my fellow commissioners' response, please.
Well, it is certainly something to consider. This is a little bit different in that it looks to me like there's a bit of a barrier between the buildings and the residential. Plus, the residential, the homes that I'm looking at from the aerial view are set back. And also, we're not talking about a patio. We're not talking about music outdoors. And we have no opposition. So I don't see that the two are similar.
I agree. I think the outdoor area and the music makes it a completely different situation.
I don't really, what barrier are you talking about?
I'm talking about the back drive, the easement. There's a huge easement there, plus there's a fence along there. I don't know, what the other, also see the trees in there. They provide some protection. I don't see how the two cases are similar.
Yeah, to my knowledge, Ruger's has been functioning here in Colleyville for many years, and their front door is about 10 feet from a residential front door, so.
Right.
If they handle that appropriately, I'm sure they'd handle this appropriately, so.
Okay. I agree. I didn't really have any, this case, so. Okay. I'm going to ask my commissioners if you feel like you have enough information to vote on this particular item.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to request a motion.
I motion we approve case ZC 19-011.
I'll second.
Okay, I'm calling for a vote for the approval of case number ZC 19-011. Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
Commissioner Holt,
Aye.
Commissioner Matheson votes aye, Commissioner Bevel.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. And having no other cases before us this evening, I'd like to call for adjournment.